Every morning, billions of people wake up and eat breakfast without giving it a second thought. But what if I told you that, for much of human history, breakfast wasn't considered the most important meal of the day? It wasn't even considered a proper meal. There was a time when respectable adults skipped breakfast entirely. Some believed eating too early was a sign of laziness. Others called it gluttony. Only children, the sick, travelers, and people headed for hard labor were expected to eat before noon. So how did we go from avoiding breakfast to believing it's the meal you should never skip? The answer isn't just about food. It's a story of survival, religion, kings and peasants, factories and fortunes, and one of the most successful marketing campaigns in history. This is the hidden origin of breakfast. Picture the last morning of your life as you know it. You wake, you reach for coffee, you tear into toast without a second thought, because breakfast feels eternal, feels sacred, feels like it has always been there, waiting for you. But what if I told you that assumption is a lie? What if the meal you trust most, the ritual that anchors every single day you've ever lived, almost never existed at all? For thousands of years, no one ate breakfast. Not because they couldn't, because they weren't allowed to. Somewhere in history, eating at dawn wasn't comfort. It was danger. It was suspicion. Religious leaders branded it greed. Physicians debated whether it could kill you. Kings dismissed it as beneath them, while starving farmers clawed at the first light just to survive one more sunrise. Two worlds, one meal, and a war neither side knew they were fighting. Then came a man, strange, obsessive, and utterly convinced he could save humanity with a spoon and a bowl. What he unleashed didn't just change breakfast. It rewired the morning of every person on Earth forever. So before you take another bite tomorrow, ask yourself, who really decided this meal should exist? Because the answer isn't comforting. It's a story of hunger, fear, faith, and one obsession that spiraled out of control. And it starts long before humans even knew what morning meant. Go back far enough, and there is no such thing as morning food. There is only hunger, raw, immediate, and merciless. Imagine waking before dawn in a world with no pantry, no stove, no guarantee that today will feed you at all. Your stomach doesn't care about tradition. It only cares about survival. And for the earliest humans, that single truth governed everything. There were no clocks, no calendars pinned to a wall, no gentle alarm easing you into the day. Time was measured by light and shadow, by the rising sun and the growl in your gut. If food was near, you ate it, now immediately, without hesitation, because you had no idea when the next meal would come. If it wasn't, you simply endured. Hunger wasn't an inconvenience. It was a constant companion, stalking every waking hour. Picture a small band of hunter-gatherers moving through dense, unfamiliar terrain. The sun hasn't fully risen. Muscles ache from yesterday's trek. Children whimper, desperate for food that may not exist. There is no bowl of cereal waiting. No guarantee of breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Every single day begins as a gamble against starvation itself. One wrong decision, one missed trail, one empty riverbank, and the entire group could be facing a slow, agonizing decline. This was the terrifying rhythm of prehistoric life. Eating wasn't scheduled. It was seized. A handful of foraged berries at sunrise. Roots dug from cold earth before the group moved on. Perhaps, if luck allowed, the leftover meat from last night's kill. Devoured quickly before scavengers could steal it away. There was no concept of the most important meal of the day. Because every meal was the most important meal. Because every meal might be the last one for days. And then the world began to shift. As humans slowly transitioned from nomadic survival to early settlements, something extraordinary emerged: agriculture. Seasons became patterns. Patterns became expectations. For the first time in human history, food wasn't just something you found, it was something you could plan for. But even then, danger lingered close behind. A poor harvest could mean months of hunger. A harsh winter could wipe out an entire village's food supply. The stakes had evolved, but they hadn't disappeared. Fast forward to the great civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and you might expect breakfast to finally take shape as we know it. It doesn't. Not yet. Not fully. In ancient Egypt, laborers built pyramids under a punishing sun, their bodies desperate for fuel before impossible physical demands. A simple meal of bread and beer, yes, beer, often a nutrient-rich, low-alcohol staple, was consumed to provide enough energy to survive brutal daily labor. Fail to eat, and you risked collapsing beneath stone blocks weighing tons, under the watchful eyes of overseers who cared little for excuses. In ancient Greece, morning meals were sparse and hurried, bread dipped in wine, perhaps olives if available. This wasn't about pleasure or indulgence. It was about function, about preparing the body for grueling physical or intellectual demands ahead. But it was Rome, arguably, that revealed just how differently the ancient world regarded the meal we now call breakfast. Wealthy Romans often skipped a formal morning meal entirely, favoring only a light bite, if that. To eat too heartily in the morning was, in some circles, considered a small moral failing, a hint of overindulgence unbefitting of discipline and restraint. Meanwhile, soldiers, slaves, and laborers had no such luxury of choice. They ate at dawn because survival demanded it. Porridge, coarse bread, or diluted wine, consumed quickly before backbreaking work began. Two different worlds. Two different moralities. One eating out of necessity, the other treating restraint as virtue. And caught between them, an uncomfortable, unspoken tension that would echo for centuries. Was eating in the morning a mark of weakness, or the only thing standing between you and collapse? Consider a Roman farmer, waking long before sunrise. His muscles are already sore from yesterday's labor. His stomach twists with hunger. He eats quickly, porridge, perhaps a piece of bread, not out of pleasure, but out of desperate necessity. Every bite is fuel for a day that could determine whether his family eats at all come winter. Meanwhile, in a villa not far away, a wealthy Roman citizen wakes leisurely, skips food altogether, and proceeds through his morning unhurried, untouched by the same visceral fear. This wasn't just about food. It was about survival hierarchy, about who had the privilege of hunger and who didn't. And it was only the beginning of a much darker turn. Because soon, something would happen that transformed eating in the morning from a matter of survival into a matter of sin. A shift so severe, it would make breakfast itself something to fear, something forbidden, something dangerous to even consider. For now, understand this. For tens of thousands of years, humans ate based on necessity, not routine. There was no set time, no guaranteed structure, no comforting ritual. Food was fuel, hunger was constant, and survival was never guaranteed. But as civilizations grew, as religion tightened its grip on daily life, a new and unexpected threat emerged. One that would turn something as simple as eating in the morning into an act loaded with moral judgment, spiritual danger, and social consequence. Because very soon, in the shadow of monasteries and under the watchful eyes of religious authorities, breakfast would become something far more dangerous than hunger. It would become a sin. Now imagine waking hungry, and being told that hunger is holy, that the ache in your stomach is not a problem to solve, but a test to pass. Welcome to medieval Europe, where breakfast didn't just disappear. It became dangerous. It became a battleground between the body and the soul. And choosing to eat too soon after waking could mark you as something far worse than impatient. It could mark you as weak, sinful, undisciplined in the eyes of God. This is the world where breakfast went from forgotten to forbidden. Christianity had tightened its grip on nearly every aspect of daily life, and food was no exception. Fasting wasn't just a religious suggestion. It was a spiritual weapon, a way to prove devotion through suffering. Entire seasons of the year, entire days of the week, were dedicated to deliberate hunger. And within this framework, a terrifying idea took hold. Eating too early in the day wasn't just unnecessary. It was gluttonous. It was a sign that you valued your body's comfort over your soul's discipline. Picture a young monk, stirring awake before dawn in a cold stone cell. His stomach growls, desperate and insistent, but he doesn't move toward food. He can't. Church doctrine has taught him that this hunger is not an enemy, it's a teacher. Every minute he delays eating is a minute spent proving his devotion, sharpening his willpower, distancing himself from the sins of indulgence. Breaking that fast too soon wasn't just a personal failure. It was a spiritual one, whispered about among his brothers, noted by superiors, weighed against his very worthiness before God. For monks and the deeply devout, meals were pushed later and later into the day, sometimes withheld until midday or beyond. Multiple small meals, or eating out of mere appetite rather than necessity, was viewed with deep suspicion. Hunger became something to endure, not something to fix. And the longer you could withstand it, the holier you appeared. But here's where the story turns dangerous, because not everyone had the luxury of waiting. Picture a farmer, waking in pitch darkness, long before the church bells ever rang for morning prayer. His body doesn't care about doctrine. His fields don't care about spiritual discipline. If he doesn't eat, he doesn't have the strength to survive a day of brutal, punishing labor, plowing frozen earth, hauling water, tending animals in bitter cold. For him, refusing food wasn't virtuous. It was suicidal. Skipping that early meal could mean collapsing in the field, jeopardizing not just his life, but his family's entire survival. So an uncomfortable, unspoken hierarchy emerged. Breakfast became a meal of necessity for the desperate. Laborers, farmers, the elderly, the sick, children too young to withstand hunger, and travelers pushed to exhaustion on long journeys. If you needed to eat in the morning, it wasn't celebrated. It was tolerated. A quiet admission that your body was too weak, too vulnerable, too poor to embody the same discipline as those above you. And this is where the true danger reveals itself. Because breakfast didn't just divide the pious from the hungry. It divided the poor from the powerful. In wealthy noble households, mornings unfolded in leisurely silence. No ergent hunger. No dash toward food. Nobles could afford to wait, sometimes skipping any real meal until midday, framing their restraint as a mark of status and self-control. Their bodies were never tested by backbreaking labor before sunrise. Their survival was never contingent on that first bite of bread. For them, hunger was a choice, a performance of discipline they could put on and take off at will. Meanwhile, in the same kingdom, sometimes in the very same village, laborers ate before the sun rose. Not out of gluttony, not out of indulgence, but out of sheer, desperate necessity. One class starved by choice, wearing hunger like a badge of honor. The other starved by circumstance, praying their early meal would be enough to survive the day ahead. Two truths, colliding in the same era. Eating in the morning could mean sin, or it could mean survival. And the line between those two outcomes wasn't drawn by faith. It was drawn by class, by power, by who got to decide what virtue even meant. Think about the terrifying pressure this created. A poor laborer eating at dawn might be judged, whispered about, viewed as lacking discipline compared to the fasting elite, even though skipping that meal could put his very life at risk. Meanwhile, a noble skipping breakfast wasn't seen as reckless. He was seen as righteous. The same act, hunger, carried opposite moral weight depending entirely on your birth, your class, your place in a rigid, unforgiving social order. And through it all, one dangerous idea kept spreading, tightening its grip across Europe. Hunger equals discipline. Comfort equals weakness. The longer you could suffer, the more virtuous you appeared, regardless of whether that suffering pushed you toward holiness or toward collapse. But nothing stays frozen forever. Slowly, quietly, cracks began to form in this rigid system. Trade routes expanded. Cities grew. Labor demands shifted. The tight grip of monastery doctrine began loosening its hold over everyday households. And something unexpected started happening behind closed doors. Ordinary families, tired of hunger disguised as virtue, began reaching for food earlier. Not to defy faith, but simply to survive changing demands of a changing world. Breakfast was beginning to escape its monastic prison. It was slipping past sermons, past guilt, past centuries of shame, and moving quietly and carefully into the homes of everyday people. But escaping the monastery didn't mean breakfast was safe. Not yet. Because the moment it entered the modern household, an entirely new force was waiting to seize control of it. One far more powerful, far more calculated, and far more dangerous than religious guilt ever was. Industry was coming. And it wouldn't just change what people ate in the morning. It would change why, and turn breakfast into something no one saw coming. Do you know what's waiting in the next chapter? Because it's about to get personal, for every single one of us. Subscribe now because you don't want to miss the moment breakfast changes forever. Now imagine a world where hunger no longer waits for permission from a priest. It waits for the scream of a factory whistle. Because that's exactly what happened next. The quiet, centuries-old rhythm of eating when your body demanded it, or when your soul allowed it, was about to be shattered by something far more relentless than religion. Machines. The Industrial Revolution didn't ask what your body needed. It didn't care about spiritual discipline or noble restraint. It demanded bodies that showed up on time, worked without pause, and kept pace with machinery that never grew tired. And suddenly, for the first time in human history, breakfast wasn't a moral question. It was a matter of survival against the clock itself. Picture a worker in a 19th century industrial city, jolted awake in darkness by the distant shriek of a factory whistle. There's no gentle sunrise to guide this morning. Only the terrifying knowledge that being even minutes late could mean lost wages, or worse, losing the job entirely. Families depended on that single income. Children needed to be fed. Rent needed to be paid. And now, hunger wasn't something to endure for spiritual growth. It was something that could get you fired, thrown into poverty, or starving on the streets. Eating breakfast wasn't optional anymore. It was fuel for survival in an unforgiving new world where machines dictated human worth. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The very system designed to strip away comfort accidentally created something entirely new. A fixed, shared, universal meal. Because when thousands of workers needed to eat before identical shifts, breakfast stopped being scattered and personal. It became scheduled, structured, expected. And it wasn't just factories forcing this transformation. Railways were spreading across entire countries, and with them came something almost invisible but incredibly powerful: standardized time. Before railways, towns kept their own local time, loosely tied to the sun. But trains couldn't run on loose, local guesswork. They demanded precision. And that same precision bled into daily life, into work shifts, into meals. For the first time, entire nations began eating breakfast at roughly the same hour, synchronized by forces far bigger than any single household. Now picture the tension this created. Millions of people, once free to eat whenever hunger or faith dictated, were suddenly bound by a schedule they didn't choose, ruled by clocks they didn't control. Miss that morning meal, and you might not get another chance until an exhausting shift finally ended, hours and hours later. The stakes had never felt more real. And into this high-pressure, high-stakes new world, two unlikely heroes emerged: coffee and tea. Imagine exhausted workers, bodies aching from repetitive labor, minds foggy from insufficient sleep, desperate for anything that could sharpen their focus before a brutal shift. Coffee and tea weren't just beverages anymore. They were survival tools. Stimulants that kept eyes open, minds alert, and bodies functioning under grueling new demands. What was once a luxury for the elite became an everyday necessity for the working class, consumed hastily before doors opened. Machines started, and the relentless rhythm of industrial life began. Meanwhile, in a different world entirely, wealthier households were transforming breakfast into something almost unrecognizable from its humble, controversial past. Step into a Victorian dining room, and you'll find an entirely new spectacle. Tables laden with eggs, crisp bacon, warm porridge, fresh toast, and steaming pots of tea. This wasn't survival eating. This was display. Performance. A visible symbol that a household had arrived, had status, had abundance to spare even during the most ordinary meal of the day. But don't be fooled into thinking this was purely indulgent comfort. Even among the wealthy, breakfast carried weight, expectation, and social pressure. Failing to host a proper morning table wasn't just embarrassing. It could quietly damage a family's reputation among peers who judged everything, including what sat on your plate at sunrise. And soon, this elaborate morning ritual began spreading beyond private homes entirely. Hotels and restaurants, sensing opportunity, began offering formal breakfast service to travelers and city dwellers alike. Suddenly, Breakfast wasn't confined to your own kitchen table. It was becoming public, commercial, something you could purchase, something that reflected identity and class with every single bite. Slowly, breakfast crept from monastery guilt, through factory necessity, into middle-class ritual, eggs, bacon, toast, and porridge becoming a recognizable, structured meal enjoyed across growing swaths of society. And yet, despite everything shifting into place, something crucial was still missing. The phrase we all take for granted today, the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, hadn't been born yet. Not officially, not widely, because the true transformation, the moment breakfast would be reshaped not by survival, not by class, but by pure calculated persuasion, hadn't happened. Not yet. Because somewhere, in a quiet sanitarium far removed from factory whistles and Victorian dining rooms, a strange, obsessive man was about to stumble upon something that would change breakfast forever. Something so simple, so unassuming, that no one could have predicted its terrifying reach. A bowl, a spoon, and a handful of crushed grain. What this eccentric doctor was about to create wouldn't just enter kitchens. It would infiltrate minds, dominate markets, and rewrite the entire cultural meaning of breakfast for generations to come. Reaching further than religion, further than industry, further than anyone could have imagined. Because up until now, breakfast had been shaped by necessity, class, and shifting social norms. But what happens next? This isn't about survival anymore. This is about to become one of the most calculated, most successful campaigns of persuasion in human history. And it starts with a single bowl of cereal that would soon sit on breakfast tables across the entire world. Now picture a quiet sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan, where a strange, obsessive doctor believed he could save humanity's health through diet alone. His name was John Harvey Kellogg, and what he was about to create wouldn't just change breakfast. It would weaponize it, transforming a simple morning meal into one of the most powerful marketing forces the world had ever seen. Kellogg wasn't interested in comfort food. He was obsessed with purity, with control, with the idea that most human illness stemmed from poor digestion and overstimulating diets. Meat, spices, rich foods, all of it, in his eyes, was dangerous. Patients at his sanitarium followed strict regimens designed to calm the body and, more disturbingly, suppress desire itself. And in pursuit of a bland, healthful alternative to traditional breakfast fare, Kellogg and his brother experimented relentlessly with grains, eventually creating something the world had never seen before: crisp, flaked cereal. At first, it seemed almost insignificant, a simple health food for patients recovering in a remote sanitarium. But that simplicity was about to become dangerously deceptive, because what started as dietary treatment was on the verge of exploding into one of the most aggressive commercial campaigns in history. Because someone else saw an opportunity Kellogg himself hadn't fully grasped: money. As cereal moved beyond sanitarium walls and into factories, packaging, and mass production, it stopped being about health and started being about profit. Competing companies rushed into the market, each one racing to convince ordinary families that this strange new food wasn't just acceptable, it was essential. Suddenly, breakfast wasn't shaped by religion, class, or industrial necessity anymore. It was being shaped by something far more calculated: advertising. Imagine families across America, opening magazines and newspapers, bombarded for the first time by bold claims that this bowl of crunchy flakes was the key to energy, health, even moral virtue. Cartoon mascots, bold slogans, promises of vitality and strength packed into every spoonful. This wasn't just selling food. It was selling identity, selling the idea that eating the right breakfast meant being the right kind of person. Healthy, modern, in control of your own destiny. And it worked. It worked terrifyingly well. Cereal wasn't the only target. Suddenly, orange juice, once a rare and expensive luxury, was being marketed as an essential source of vitality, packaged and pushed into households as a morning necessity. Bacon and eggs, foods that had existed for centuries without any special morning significance, were rebranded through targeted campaigns as the ultimate hearty, energizing start to the day, reinforced by doctors, nutritionists, and advertisers working together to cement a narrative that had never existed before in such rigid form. Think about that for a moment. Much of what we consider traditional breakfast today isn't ancient at all. It's shockingly recent, carefully constructed within the last century through calculated persuasion rather than natural cultural evolution. The bacon and eggs on your plate, the orange juice in your glass, the cereal in your bowl. All of it was, in many ways, engineered. Sold to you as timeless tradition when in reality, it was strategic invention. And the pressure kept escalating. As packaged foods flooded grocery store shelves, competition intensified. Companies didn't just want to sell breakfast anymore. They wanted to own it, to become synonymous with the entire concept of starting your day correctly. Yogurt entered the conversation as a healthy alternative. New products claimed to be fortified, enriched, essential for children's growth and adult energy alike. Breakfast had become a battlefield, and every household in the modern world was the prize. But even as this machine of persuasion grew more powerful, something deeper and more unsettling was happening beneath the surface. Breakfast was becoming less about your body's actual needs and more about what companies needed you to believe. And yet, despite this overwhelming push toward a single, standardized ideal breakfast, the world never fully surrendered to uniformity. Because if you traveled beyond Western advertising campaigns, you'd find breakfast telling an entirely different story depending on where you stood on the globe. In Japan, rice, fish, and miso soup might greet the morning. In parts of the Middle East, breakfast could mean flatbread, cheese, and olives. In Vietnam, a steaming bowl of pho might start the day. Across cultures, breakfast still resisted total conquest, holding on to identity, tradition, and regional history despite the relentless pressure of global marketing. This tension, between manufactured uniformity and stubborn cultural individuality, still shapes our mornings today. Every time you pour cereal into a bowl, sip orange juice, or plate eggs and bacon, you're not just eating. You're participating in a legacy of persuasion, survival, faith, class, and industry that spans thousands of years. Because the truth is undeniable now. Breakfast was never simple. It was never guaranteed. It was fought over, moralized, industrialized, and ultimately sold to you as tradition, when in reality, it was built, piece by piece, choice by choice, campaign by campaign. And here's the most unsettling part of all. If breakfast could be so completely reshaped once, transformed from sin to necessity, to marketing triumph, what does that mean for the meal sitting on your table tomorrow morning? Because the forces that built breakfast haven't disappeared. They've only evolved, still shaping what you believe you need to eat, still convincing you that tradition is older and more sacred than it actually is. So the next time you sit down to eat, ask yourself, is this really your choice? Or is it the final result of thousands of years of survival, guilt, ambition, and persuasion, engineered so perfectly that you never even noticed? Because the story of breakfast isn't over. And what it reveals next about you, about the choices you think are yours, might be the most unsettling discovery yet. So here we are, back where we started, standing in front of a bowl of cereal, a plate of eggs, a cup of coffee that suddenly feels far heavier than it did an hour ago. Because now you know the truth. Breakfast was never simple. It was never guaranteed. And it was never, ever timeless. For prehistoric hunters, that first bite of the day meant the difference between survival and collapse. A desperate gamble against hunger with no promise of tomorrow. For medieval Europeans, that same bite could brand you a sinner or a saint, depending entirely on your class, your faith, and your willingness to suffer for salvation. For factory workers trapped beneath the scream of industrial whistles, breakfast became a race against the clock, fuel forced down before machines demanded everything they had left. And for us, for you right now, breakfast has become something almost tragic in its ordinariness. A rushed, distracted ritual, squeezed between alarms, notifications, and the relentless pressure of modern life. For completely different worlds. For completely different meanings. All hiding behind the same simple word, breakfast. History didn't hand us this meal fully formed. It fought for it, reinvented it, weaponized it, moralized it, industrialized it, and eventually sold it back to us as something ancient and sacred. When really it was built through centuries of survival, guilt, ambition, and calculated persuasion. So tomorrow morning, when you pour that cereal, butter that toast, or take that first sip of coffee, pause, just for a second. Because you're not just eating. You're participating in a ritual carved out of hunter-gatherer desperation, monastery guilt, factory urgency, and boardroom marketing campaigns designed to convince you this was always the plan. It wasn't. Nothing about breakfast was inevitable. Every bite carries the weight of thousands of years of human struggle, survival, faith, science, and culture, colliding again and again until they created the version sitting in front of you right now. And that raises the most unsettling question of all. If something as small as routine, as unquestioned as breakfast was quietly built, shaped, and sold to us over centuries, what else in your daily life do you believe is timeless, natural, unchangeable? When really, it's just another hidden origin, waiting to be uncovered? Because history doesn't just live in textbooks. It lives in your kitchen, your morning routine, your very first decision of the day. So the next time you think something is simply the way things have always been, stop. Ask why. Because the answer might change the way you see everything. If this story changed the way you'll look at breakfast forever, imagine what else is hiding in plain sight. Subscribe now, because the next hidden origin is coming, and you won't want to miss it. This video is a dramatized, narrative-driven exploration of the history of breakfast, created for educational and entertainment purposes. While grounded in historical research, certain details, scenes, and imagery have been reconstructed or stylized for storytelling effect. Visuals in this video were created using AI image generation tools and are artistic interpretations, not authentic historical photographs or records. Viewers seeking academic or peer-reviewed historical sources are encouraged to consult dedicated food history scholarship for further study.